Hey, what up? And welcome back to my podcast, Low Power Mode with Breezy. Let's get it kicked off.
I got an excess of black bile, high irascibility, contemplating checking myself into facility, mental ability clearly affected,
Deep in the dumps, down and dejected.
I've been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.
All right, so I hope everyone has been doing well. I feel like we're in this really strange space where it's a pandemic out there, but the weather's getting nicer, so it feels less threatening, but also numbers are going up. So it's bad, but also fewer people are wearing masks, so it doesn't look as bad. So, yeah, it's a bit confusing to me. But hey, when things get too confusing, I just turn in and focus on Low Power Mode podcast. So let's get it kicked off with some music. Music. All right. So today I want to talk about Earthgang. So if you're in the hip hop world, if you're in the US hip hop world and have been for the past like 5 or so years, you probably have heard the name Earthgang. They are a dope duo from Atlanta, I believe, and they dropped on I think it was like the end of March. They dropped a video for their track Strong Friends. So I want to talk about Strong Friends, the group, the song, and the video. So the group, I remember. Okay, so I had definitely heard of Earthgang, had been perusing and checking out what sort of music videos they had going on YouTube, and I remember being taken by the like zen-ness of the pair. You know, because you get so much like all this like mumble rap trap about like drugs and fucking bitches, and it's like, so it's really striking when you get something that's not that coming from, the image of black cis men. So when I saw Earthgang right off the bat, I definitely got that alternative vibe, that like Tribe Called Quest kind of vibe. And then not necessarily sonically, but the style wise. And then not last year, 2020, the time is such an illusion, or so warped in Corona. But I remember it was like spring into summer of 2020, and they had this. Okay, so basically Earthgang did some albums with a bunch of other dope ass artists, including Mereba, who's like more into like R&B soul, but can rap as well. So good. And they did some albums together as Spillage Village. So this was off of the Spillage Village album called Spillage. And so the song is so good. What I love about Earthgang is they're so musical. Like I love musical rap, and they're so funky, and yeah, like the comparisons I've heard are like Outkast, and they're like a little bit J. Cole adjacent in terms of flow. And it's been really cool. Like ever since J. Cole was beefing with No Name, I kind of backed off from J. Cole. But I used to be a huge fan. And it's been cool to see that they're signed to Dreamville, J. Cole's label, and have been doing a lot of great work under that label. And that J. Cole included them as his opener for the European leg of one tour, and then I think maybe again for some dates for the US, for a US tour that J. Cole was doing. So I love to see artists who have already been, who've been successful lifting other artists up. And so, yeah, so this group is just so talented. And when I saw heard the song and saw the music video for the End of Days, I was like, sign me up. Whatever they're giving, like I love it. I want it. And so so then they hit me the other day with this Strong Friends track and video, and I was just like torn to shreds because it's so good and it's so healing, and we're not used to that in hip hop. Like we're used to I don't know. I mean, I hip hop is so multidimensional, so it's not necessarily one or the other. But lately, I found myself listening to other genres because I'm not getting that healing component from hip hop, and I think that Earthgang really brings it back home and connects with like that OG spirit of hip hop, that celebration of the struggle and that sort of thing. So this song, Strong Friends, it's like, check in on your strong friends, check in on your strong friends. I mean, it's so simple and it's so catchy and everything, but the message behind it is so real and so raw. I think a lot of us, since Corona has struck and spread, we have been super challenged in the way that we present our outer image, and because we're not like leaving home as much, for instance, like you get less opportunity to present an outer image. So yeah, so it eats away at self-confidence and just those things that help you deal with struggle and help you be resilient. So yeah, this song is just like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. Particularly addressing, like homegirl trying to put on a front and all this stuff. And I love too when Black cis men are paying attention and giving care to women, after everything that Black women have experienced from hip hop as a whole genre. We need a lot of lifting up. And so it's really dope to see this. And I gotta give credit where credit is due. Sometimes as a queer person, as a AFAB person, and I identify as non-binary. So sometimes it just feels like it's easiest to just not deal with cis men because it's like you're always going to have to explain yourself. Not necessarily in personal handlings, but if I'm going to listen to music, then maybe I'm going to choose someone also assigned female at birth or queer or something, because I know that it's not gonna all of a sudden have triggering moments, stuff like that. So to really put your faith in a group, and I feel like Outkast was totally that way. Even though the Times was about something else, Outkast was never demeaning towards women. I never felt that. And I own a lot of their albums and have dug really deep. And it's like, yeah, I just that whole like 70s kind of worshiping or like getting down on your knees for women, like that kind of thing. I feel like Earthgang kind of carries a little bit of that through into their hip hop. So Strong Friends, so good. And then the music video. So, I love a good music video. And I also love a low budget music video and a smart music video. So using your camera angles and what you have at your disposal, so as to not have a huge budget, but to do a lot with a little. That's hip hop for me. So the video is essentially they're in a studio with it's darkly lit and there's a projection screen in the back with moving images like you're driving a car of like city and lights and stuff. And there's a stationary car with the two members of Earthgang up front and then like a whole bunch of homies on top of the car or in the back seat of the car. And so it starts zoomed out and you see that it's a stationary car. But then for the length of most of the video, in the beginning, it slowly zooms in. And then for the length of the video, you're just in there. Like it doesn't feel like it's a stationary car at all. You forget that the car is stationary, even though you just saw that it's stationary. And they filmed this whole video. It's so good. Again, like the song is so good. It all just fits, flows nicely. And then at the very end, they start to zoom out and you see the shadow of someone like moving with a chain. And then you see that someone is appearing to be pulling the car as they're slowly zooming out, right? So you start to see the projection screen, and then to the left, you see that someone is appearing to be pulling the car by a chain, but he's on a treadmill. So it's so silly. It's so funny. It's so smart. It's all the things that I like about art and hip hop, like all rolled up into one. And just came into like a $10, gift card or Visa credit card. I think I'm gonna buy an Earthgang album because I'm just like really feeling them, and I feel like this is music that I want with me and to help heal me and stuff. So can't shout out Earthgang enough right now. Definitely check out the Strong Friends video. I'll drop it in the show notes, and let's move on to TV. Television. Okay, so I did it. I fell into jumped on the bandwagon and I watched Bel Air. Not the whole, I didn't catch up. I just watched the very first episode of Bel Air. Now, I think we all were touched or influenced by Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Will Smith's music, Will Smith's movies. Like at some point during the 90s, Will Smith probably came into your life. And so as the world continues to beat up on him, I'm sticking to my guns and supporting the whole family. So Bel Air is a reboot of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And instead of going with the comedy, they went with the drama format. And it changes everything. And the story behind this show is so special and unique. Oh my God, I'm starting to get emotional here. Okay. I'm going to try to do this succinctly and not get overly emotive. So Morgan Cooper, a young, Black, excellent cinematographer, director, screenwriter from Kansas City. He said he was okay. So this is from. I've also listened to the podcast starting out with DJ Jazzy Jeff and Ada. Blanking on her last name. then Crystal from the Reed stepped in. But I did listen to that podcast, so this is how I know some of this information. And I'll, yeah. If you want to dive in, I highly recommend supplementing with the podcast because there's all these juicy background stories around the production. But essentially, Morgan Cooper's driving in Kansas City, and he said he drove under a bridge, and his mind, like just in like that 10 seconds or whatever, his mind just completely thought of the whole idea, fleshed it out, tone, style, everything. And when he came out of the bridge, like he knew he had to do it. So I still don't know how, like he must, I haven't like completely done a deep dive on him, but he must have had some kind of relations with the media production company, or I'm like, where did you get the money to film this is my question as someone also in their early 30s, creative, whatever. But it's Sun Squared Media, I think, is the production company that he worked with. And so he, on his own, did a reimagining of an updated Fresh Prince of Bel Air in 2022 as a drama. And he made a short film. So in the short film, really, I went and watched it on Vimeo. I'll add it to the show notes, but it felt like he knew what he was doing. It felt like he was setting himself up for where he's at now. Because this was not just this was not just a short film. It looked like a trailer. And I'm wondering, I have so many questions. I think it's so brilliant. But so imagine you're driving in your home city, you're just driving, and then you go under a bridge and you reimagine a whole ass TV show from your childhood. And then you go ahead and you create that. So already I'm giving flowers to this man. Then after he makes the whole thing, casts the characters, shoots the thing, and there's a proper mansion in there. There's some nice shots in there. He had really nice equipment, and this is no homegrown shit, even though the idea is, there's a lot of things I don't know. But he knocked it out of the park, released it on Vimeo, I think on Vimeo, maybe on YouTube as well. Released the trailer everywhere. And then he heard from Westbrook. He heard from Russell Westbrook. I think it's Russell Westbrook's studio. I don't know, sports, basketball, NBA player, whatever. So Russell Westbrook has a team who's just like constantly on YouTube, found this video, sent it to Will Smith, or maybe Will Smith saw it on his own. Will Smith was immediately a fan. And they, like, in 24, I think it was between 24 or 48 hours when they came back to him and they were like, are you ready to do this? Because we want to make this. So the show is also executive produced by the original executive producers of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Andy and Susan Borowitz. You've got Quincy Jones as an executive producer, Will Smith. Was Benny Medina in there? I'm pretty sure, because Benny Medina was a producer on Fresh Prince of Bel Air in the 90s. But the Fresh Prince of Bel Air is actually Benny Medina's life story that Will Smith was chosen to play. So there's this beautiful passing down and evolving, like, of the ranks here in terms of who's directing and acting. While the producers are still, it's just, I don't know, it's wild. It's almost like Fresh Prince became this monolith that has now, like, birthed a new generation. And the show Bel Air is so good that had it not had any had it not had any ties to Fresh Prince of Bel Air, if for some reason Fresh Prince of Bel Air had never existed, this show would still be phenomenal. Oh my gosh, still be phenomenal. But knowing that one person, well, and of course they had a bunch of writers for the actual, but for the short film, for his idea, Morgan Cooper, one person wrote and directed, and shot everything. And that's it. I don't know. It's just so beautiful. There's like so much love when everyone's talking to each other, because it's just like the older generation is so proud to share the story and make it relevant to a new generation, and the new generation is simply honored to be a part of it. So it's really special. It's a really special moment in TV history, and I'm really glad that I didn't put it off, because I put things off because I know I'm going to love them and then need to finish them and subscribe or pirate or whatever I need to do in order to get to the content. So I try to have some what's that called? Delayed I forget. It's like something in psychology, but I try to be cool and not, just eat it up as it's coming. But this is so good. Oh, I've already talked so much and I haven't even talked like about the actual show. So, okay. So, oh God, there's so much to talk about. Okay. I'll talk about my experience. So watched this, I think yesterday with my mom, and 15 minutes, it's kind of like a Euphoria situation where they don't play the opening credits until everything has fully been established, like 15 minutes in, which is a long time, even though these episodes are, coming in around like 50 minutes an episode, still like 15 minutes. So we're dropped right into essentially the song and the theme song from Fresh Prince of Bel Air that everybody knows. Everybody. Because I will say, I was randomly traveling in Nicaragua in the jungle, and there was a Danish person who's, I'd say now we're friends, but this Danish person, she was like, yeah, I learned English from watching Fresh Prince of Bel Air reruns, dubbed. It would be dubbed in Danish, but no, not dubbed in, no, it would be in English. Yeah. The subtitles would be in Danish. But so she learned English from Fresh. I was like, that is some globalization, wild ass shit. So, okay. So everybody knows, West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days. So, we got the setting in West Philly. We got his best friend Trey. We got mom, living with single mom situation, and it's like Will's on his way to college scholarship town, and then he says in the theme song, got in one little fight and my mom got scared. She said, you're moving with your auntie and uncle to Bel Air. So all this shit goes down, but it's a drama. It's so good. He loves his city so much and is so proud and is a basketball player and, the streets and the courts. And so essentially has a face-off with like a gang member, and then has a fair game. Everything goes fine. And then the ball accidentally hits one of them in the face. And that's when shit goes left, which is actually what you see in the theme song of Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So it's so good. So accurate. And apparently also, side note, they cast like, I think one or two Philly rappers, like actual Philly rappers who are holding down the scene right now. Like they cast them, just great stuff going on behind the scenes in the production. So his friend Trey had a gun, and when Will gets away and the whole gang starts to beat up on Trey, he's scared Trey's not going to make it out alive. So he fires the gun into the air. Pretty much immediately, cops show up, and we've got a situation where he's down on his knees, handcuffed, with a cop's knee on his back, which is, it was close to Trump re-trigger. It was very like, we all know how this plays out and have just seen it too well. So that was a really intense moment, but also I felt like they did a good job. They did a good job of referencing a recent moment in our history while also focusing on the story at hand. So Will, goes to the holding cell, and then it's Uncle Phil who makes the calls to get him out. But we don't know when we don't know exactly what's going down when his mom picks him up and they're having this hard conversation. She's on her way to LA. LA. She's on her way to the airport to get his ass on a plane to go to LA. So it's wild. All this shit goes down. Then, I loved this interpretation. So in the theme song, they have a cab driver, pull up with Will Smith. They had Jazz be like an Uber driver, essentially. So he meets Jazz on the way, and Jazz is also from Philly, and he can tell Will's from Philly. And there's this beautiful dialogue built in. It's just taking the show, taking the plot, taking the premise for the 90s comedy, writing it down, and then filling it in as a drama. It's so the formula is so clear, which I think means that they did such a good job with it. So yeah, so he kind of bonds with Jazz on the way to Bel Air. And then when they pull up, they're both like, damn, it's, the mansion is nuts. I mean, I don't know how they filming this. I just don't even know. But yeah, there's countless things I need to pull out now from the plot of the show and say, there's Terrace Martin and Robert Glasper doing the music. If you know anything about musicians and jazz, Robert Glasper is one of the best on the planet for composing and music supervision, that sort of thing. So every song I was just like, oh my God, so good, such a good choice. Da, 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 da. And another moment I thought was so good just in the first episode was they had so Carlton plays lacrosse, and Carlton is so different, like so different. Still this uppity, sedity thing he's got going on, but in the 2022 way. Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And I will say everyone has access to this. Well, if you're not in the States, you might need a VPN, but you can go to the Peacock website and sign up and watch the first episode. And so for free. And that's what I did. And I feel like even if I do have to wait until it gets to be on something that I can watch it more easily, the first episode is still worth it to watch because it's just so inspiring and incredible to see how they translated and did this reboot. It's like the best reboot ever done. And okay, so we talked about the music, the casting. So funny. The young man they found to play Will Smith is named Jabari Banks, which is the last name of the Uncle Phil's family, Philip Banks, who lives in Bel Air. So I don't know what, like, that's just some random shit. So funny. And yeah, this kid is killing it. He can do drama, he can do comedy, which we all know Will Smith for. So it's really great to see him just kicking so much ass right out the gate. As I said, they cast a bunch of Philly rappers. They cast Coco Jones, who I wasn't familiar with her, but apparently she's singer, rapper, like done a bunch of stuff as well. This Carlton casting though is it's wild. It's so the Carlton casting and the Uncle Phil were the most striking to me because we all knew the character of Uncle Phil as being like this big guy, tall and wide and lovable in his own way, just trying to do the best for the family. And this new Uncle Phil is like, he's ripped. They kept the bald, so loved that. But he's ripped. He's got, very freshly shaped up facial hair, all that stuff. His clothes fit him extremely tight. It's harder to love Uncle Phil right off the bat, at least from the first episode and from this casting. But I don't hate it. I love what they did. It's just like, woof, wow. And then Carlton. So imagine, okay, so Carlton is still short, but there's a confidence and a swagger that he has that the Carlton in the original never was close to. And Alfonso Ribeiro was I mean, just again, epic TV. The Carlton is a dance that everybody knows. Like, it's just so well done. But this new interpretation is entirely different. And Carlton plays lacrosse, and he's kind of like, yeah, like a white girl passes by and says what up to Carlton, and Will's like, but then they show this moment after lacrosse practice where Will goes into the locker room to meet Carlton, where he told him to meet him. And they're playing, Bobby Shmurda, and this white lacrosse player's standing up high on a bench, and all the other ones are kind of gathered around him, and he's saying the N-word again and again and again. And so Will calls him out on it, and Carlton is so not having the awareness of like, yo, man, like, don't say that word. Whereas Will lives that. And so it was such a good thing, and it was so relatable. I mean, I feel like for everyone Black who went to an independent or a private school, like, this was our reality. And I was not at a point in my Blackness to call it out. I wouldn't say the N-word, but I wasn't like policing people around me. I wasn't like being like, yo, don't say. I was just naive and didn't have an understanding of boundaries or of what was appropriate at that time. And so I get both of those. And I think, like, when you have the characters who are like so relatable, they're both so real, like, it's so good. So anyway, this moment really helps us understand Carlton. I think he's very Uncle Tom. very, okay, yeah, I'll do the little dance you need me to do. Yeah, I can suck up to the white folk or shave my head, not wear my natural hair, or like I have no problem doing that. But in the first episode, there we meet the character who has formerly dated Carlton, and it's clear that Carlton has been through something, so we're not exactly sure what. And Will walks in on Carlton snorting what he said to be Xanax in his room. And so I'm getting a very repressed, very sir, yes, sir on the outside, and then the inside just like breaking down. And I thought, wow, what an incredible way to interpret this young Black teenager who is in this wealthy family and kind of has to play this role because of that. And because Uncle Phil's like running in political climates and things like that, there's this pressure. And so Carlton acts like he doesn't feel the pressure, but he really does, which again is a brilliant interpretation from the original show where Carlton just worshiped his dad and would do whatever his dad wanted him to do and was completely just, his dad was his hero and he didn't question that. And I think that is carried over into this new episode, but the way that he's coping, the way he's managing, is so real and accurate and relatable. So, oh God, this show is incredible. And then to hear like DJ Jazzy Jeff, the actual person who was in Fresh Prince of Bel Air, was Will's partner in rap, and has lived the legacy and all that stuff, talking about the show and being so amped up on the show. It's like so cool. It's so cool. So, as I said, if you want, join in. It's a really fun ride, and it gives me a lot of hope in TV. And reboots. and yeah. If you don't care, then that's cool too. But yeah, for me, this is such a special moment in TV. So, all right, we're gonna move on to film. Movies. Film. All right, welcome back to Low Power Mode with Breezy, and we are in our film section. Now, today, I want to talk about the film In the Eye. No, it's not called In. Sorry. The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Now, I say both because there's a recent biopic starring Jessica Chastain, and then there's a documentary narrated by the one and only RuPaul Charles about Tammy Faye. And so after I saw the biopic, I then immediately needed to know. Me and my mom, we watched it together. We were like, "What's this whole Tammy Faye thing?" And then we immediately needed to see some actual footage of her and like what was real and all that stuff, because the story is so wild. But I love a good story that takes place in the States where like people they created something that was good out of good, and then like it turned into a monster. But this story has so many layers and is so fascinating and stuff. So Tammy Faye, I know Tammy Faye from the tattoo on Sharon Needles' arm from Drag Race, because again, Drag Race is where I get a lot of like gay culture stuff that I am not aware of. So So yeah, and then RuPaul was super interested in Tammy Faye, and I was like, okay, okay. And I knew that she was a religious figure or someone who was maybe caught up in like waves of like a faction of Christianity or something. That's pretty much all I knew. And then I just started watching the film and I was like, oh my goodness, this story is wild. So if you're like me, and it was interesting too, because my mom, her generation, so she grew up not watching it, but like having it on TV. So essentially, Tammy Faye and Jim Baker were, they went to like some sort of divinity school, got married young, and then were like traveling preachers. And they eventually sort of added puppets to their gig and would do like Tammy Faye would do like voices and puppets, and then they eventually ran into someone who worked at a TV station who then offered them to host their show. And so from there, they took they took Christian TV. They essentially took Christian TV and what had already been laid out in terms of like preaching on TV and made it fun. And we know how much we like for things to be fun in the States. And if you appeal to kids, then that's in terms of sales and marketing, then you're going to do well. So what happened was this young couple, they got on TV, they were doing their thing, and 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 they started to get a lot of attention and people ate it up. They were doing, I mean, come on. This was the 60s. Was it the 60s? 60s, maybe early 70s. No, I want to say this was late 60s, where they're getting on TV and they've got a set and they've got the puppets. And so Tammy Faye would go behind, like the house or whatever and have the puppets and do the voices. And I love, they showed it in the biopic and in the documentary, or I don't know what's what, any like to keep them separate anymore, but how they would like wear these mics as like necklaces around them. I'd never seen that miking before, and I thought that was so fun in the 60s. So they're wearing their mics, and so she's doing the puppets, and he has a microphone, and they're like going back and interacting with each other. And I forget how much they explored this in the biopic, but in the documentary, Jim, he's remarried now. Or no, it'd still be Baker. So Jim Baker, he mentioned that Tammy would do voices of these puppets and things, and one of the voices would be kind of catty and mean, and that they would get into real arguments where she was kind of like like bringing something up, that they had a disagreement about or something through the puppet, and he would actually be engaging in it with her, and it would be like something real, like an actual argument that was being played out through puppets. From a psychology standpoint, wild. But Tammy Faye was so interesting because she was she born out of wedlock or something? No, her mother, I think it was that her mother had gotten a divorce and was completely like estranged or shut out from her Christian community because of that, which is so fucked up, because she probably, women who needed to get divorces women who need to get divorces back then, if your whole religion is like, you can never divorce, but it's so bad that you need to divorce, like I just think about the circumstances. And and so she was shunned. And so Tammy, I think, was her oldest child, and then she got remarried and then had kids with this with her husband, her new husband. So Tammy, she didn't want Tammy to come into the church with like her mom and all the other kids. So she was like estranged from the church. And then when she went into the church, she had like a really religious experience. And then ever since then, she just like had her relationship with God, and she just wanted to love people. And I really love that. Like, it's very sweet and endearing and beautiful. And being raised as a Christian in my youth, and just, before like all the trauma sets in, all that shit, when you're a kid and you just want to love, like you simply just, it's, I think we all have that when we're children. We want to love. It's that's how we're wired. And then society just jades us. But she seemed to really be coming from this place of love throughout everything. Now I think when you have that spirit of the child, the inner child, and wanting to love, but you don't develop a sense of an older adult who has things under control, that's where things can get hairy. And I think that's what happened with her. Like, she was stuck in her childhood trauma, and so just used loving people and generosity and wanting to sing and do puppets and be on TV as her way of coping with her trauma. But she was so fierce. She was a bit Rose Nyland, or actually no, not Rose Nyland. She was a bit Betty White. Well, I can't even. I just remember watching the Betty White documentary and her being very at the forefront of early TV. And I imagine as a woman that was not easy, and that there were conversations or water cooler talk that Betty White had to put up with or deal with or push her way into, these conversations and things. And they showed in the biopic and in the documentary how she had to do that. This was early TV, early days of TV. So if we think about how TV is today and the struggles and the problems and the systemic, sort of stuff going on, when TV was in its early days, she really had to be fierce. And so it's not like she didn't have any sense of that adult, because she did assert herself and fiercely value herself in the same way, that because she saw everyone as being equal. And I feel this way too. I don't identify with Christianity so much anymore, but I do believe that like we're all like put on this earth, and we all have like equal right to be here and to live our lives and do what we want to do, as long as we're not hurting other people. And so, yeah, it's just like when people start to tell other people how to live their lives where things get tricky. But yeah, Tammy Faye was just she just wanted to treat people as equals in love. And herself, she wanted to be treated as an equal and be valued just as much as her husband. And that was super fierce and feminist. So essentially what happens is, after they're doing this successful TV work, and they established their first the first kind of late night Christian talk show, the 700 Club, which they modeled off of successful talk shows. And so the network wanted to take over, of course, and get in on the pot. And they were like, no. So they left and they started their own thing. And they called it PTL, Praise the Lord. And so they did everything. They built their own production studio and they did kids shows. They did selling products. They did everything. And they just all with this kind of like praise the Lord veneer on top. So it's just your average capitalism, but marketed through a Christian lens. And it was wild because they just got so successful. Audiences grew, more and more and more money was being made. And something really special happened that now I see why Tammy Faye was such a gay icon. So right in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, where probably everyone who knows like it's maybe you didn't have someone directly, but you probably knew someone who lost someone to AIDS. She brought on a gay cis male on TV. She did she was in her studio and they were filming her and they were filming him and he was on a TV screen. So she's interacting with him. And she brings him on and she talks about what it's like to have AIDS and to be gay and she supports this. She basically uses her white woman tears for good, and she gets so visibly upset because this gay man who has struggled with AIDS and has to change his whole life and his whole sense of security around his life and all this stuff. And she's so appalled that Christians would hate gay people. So she shows this humanity towards gays in the midst of the AIDS crisis. And really, really you're just swept away as a queer person because you're like, we don't see this happening. We don't see this happening that much. To have a cisgender, heterosexual, white woman bring a gay man onto a successful Christian TV show in the 70s or 80s, come on. That's unheard of. So I was so happy to see that moment in the biopic. I was happy to see that moment replayed in real life. I mean, it's wild because they have all these moments on TV. Just her whole life, I think about podcasts sometimes. And if you do a podcast for, let's say, 5 years, then that's so many hours of you. And so in a TV perspective, it's just like wild and horrifying to me to have all of your life just on there. But that was her life. And she gave her life. It's almost as if this Christian TV thing was early reality TV. So then it gets pretty dark, as a lot of stories of getting rich quick and, well, not quick, but yeah, in the States happens, it was money mismanagement, but also it seemed that Jim Bakker, he was just, he pegged himself as a builder and he just wanted to continue to build. So they built the studios, they built the third most visited theme park outside of Disney World and Disneyland in the States. I mean, just massive amounts of money and wealth. But Jim seemed really selfish and apparently he was like, he didn't come out as gay, but he definitely had some queer tendencies there, and then that came back to bite him. This story is so juicy. There's just so many layers, And but luckily when he had an affair. He had an affair, and he had like rape allegation or sexual assault allegations against him, and there was the money stuff, and so he went to jail. And so Tammy was kind of left ostracized from the community, like very hated on by like Christian TV folks. And it was just wild to see like how in the biopic they portray her to be very naive when it comes to all the business dealings. She's doing the upfront, the entertainment, the singing, that sort of stuff. The woman does that and the man deals with the business and that sort of thing. And so Jim really destroys what they had, and she's left like she's kind of left with no one and nothing after building such an empire. It's wild. And in the documentary, narrated by RuPaul, again produced by the same producers of like Drag Race, it's like Fenton Bailey and Randy Lerman, I think. It's a very sensitive documentary. They have a lot of interviews with her, either sitting down with her in her apartment or and she ends up dealing with some health issues, and she ends up after she gets divorced from Jim, poor thing, because her mother, all the trauma from her mother's divorce and everything, and then she has to divorce Jim because he's a friggin' idiot. And so after her divorce, she ends up getting with one of the builders of these builders and investors. So someone's name who she heard a ton during her marriage with Jim and all of this stuff. And then eventually she gets married to one of the builders. Kind of like, well, I mean, he was around a lot and you can't help who you fall in love with, but it just felt weird because it was like, isn't this one of the people who's caught up in the business dealings that kind of screwed you over? Excuse me. So again, like this naivete that's coded in just wanting to love, and like that Christian mindset without like boundaries or responsibility or accountability. I don't know. It's kind of like she was a victim to that. But she did have this phenomenal career where she was on TV, she wrote books, she recorded something like 40 albums. Now she ended up having not sex, but like having a kiss or something with one of her producers, which when she was honest about it with Jim, that's when Jim went out and had his sexual dealings with who some other people set it up for him, which to me is just like so gross. Ugh, gross. So yeah, it's just wild because what women have to put up with and deal with today is a lot. And then when I go back a few generations, or when I think about her lifetime, she came from nothing. She didn't have money or family support. And then she kind of had to latch on. Women historically have had to latch on to a man because he will get paid and then they will be able to survive. And it's like survival to get married and have kids. So it's kind of great that she had the kids, because then in her later years, like her daughter ran away when like all this crazy press stuff was happening, fair enough, right? But then when Tammy was dealing with her health issues later on in life, she had this like rebonding moment with her daughter, and then her daughter was around her more for her later years, and she passed in 2007. So yeah, she didn't. It, she she her life was cut short likely by disease. But wow, it was wild to go into her story, and I really appreciate uh a cis woman and an AFAB person who really asserts themselves so fiercely that they achieve what they want, even though it comes with struggle. Because either way, you're going to struggle. You're either going to struggle with the dreams that you have and not pursuing them, or you're going to struggle pursuing your dreams. And she's someone it seemed like her life was so incredible, like just fascinating. And she was at the crux of TV being in everyone's home, and Christianity, and American capitalism, and like all of these things. But she also was this incredible entertainer. She was doing puppet shows, recording albums, producing TV shows. I mean, they said that she, like at the network in the early days, that she could do 3-hour-long TV shows with no preparation at all. Just get the cameras rolling and she'll work it. So it's like, just so, that's so impressive. It's really, I don't know, to not recognize her as an incredible entertainer, but also feminist and activist, LGBTQ. I mean, so okay, and then in the biopic they showed that she felt ostracized from the Christian community, so then she went to the secular community, and she actually co-hosted a season of this show of this show with a gay male co-host. And he was like, yeah, she just, I know she doesn't necessarily like agree, but she just makes me feel so comfortable being who I am. And he had just lost his partner to AIDS, and so just to see, wow, like someone go beyond religion and beyond the rules and things set for them, and just look at people as human, so refreshing with the religious backdrop. Like really, really good story. I'm really glad to know her story. Yeah, I can definitely recommend the biopic. Was it on Hulu, or I think it was on Hulu, and the documentary, which it's on like Wow Presents or Wow Presents Plus or something. And Wow is like where all the drag shows live. so yeah, we're signed up currently for Wow, so you're probably going to be getting some more drag stuff in the near future. That's all I got for you today. In terms of film, don't worry, we're still doing our outro. But yeah, Tammy Faye, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Oh, and I can't not mention that Tammy Faye was named, or like referred to as, one of the first original drag queens, because she was notorious. She was known for her eyelashes. She would glue them on with like super glue or something. Like normally the girls, you can put them on and then you can take them off. She would just put them on, leave them on. When one fell off, she would add another one on. She would go nowhere without those eyelashes. And she wore all this makeup. She had this super strong silver highlighter right underneath her brows, which we know yes, in makeup you put the highlighter underneath the brow to highlight the brow bone, but it was just so heavy silver eyeliner or highlight, and her liner, her lip liner, she ended up having tattooed on. She may have ended up having eyeliner tattooed on her face as well. So in terms of just, she just loved makeup and was so passionate about it and wouldn't go anywhere without her lashes. And they do these really cute moments in both the documentary and the biopic about her moments with the makeup folks, makeup artists, where they're like, yeah, normally folks come in with a blank face, and then we'll apply some things. But the makeup artists, they're like, okay, so we're gonna need you to take off some of that makeup. And she's like, well, I can take my lips off, but the rest of it's tattooed on. So you're not gonna be able to do much. And it's like so funny. The MUA is just like, oh, didn't know that. So funny. So good. So, leaving you with the beautiful, loving, makeup-filled image of Tammy Faye Baker's face. Well, she ended up Tammy Faye Messner. Yeah, we will wrap up film here and move on to the outro. Hey, listen, sometimes you gotta check in with yourself.
Check in with yourself.
All right, and to end us out today, that doesn't make any sense. To close us off, no, whatever. The outro is positive affirmations, sort of in the vein of Tammy Faye and her whole thing. I think when life wears you down over the years and you are a survivor of trauma, but you don't fully deal with that trauma, the world feels unsafe. And so it's easier to sit back and isolate and then, judge or come up with excuses or look at the bad, And when I think about myself, I've recently gotten to the point where I've been able to reflect better on my years in my life. And I think in my early 20s, I still had this effervescence and optimism and stuff that I definitely lost. And I've just been in that place of like sarcasm and cynicism and that sort of thing because it feels a lot safer. It feels smarter. It feels like, okay, well, I know what I'm doing because I know how I've been hurt and I know where I don't want to be hurt again. But yeah, so I'd be a little bit of like the cool kid in high school, like turning my nose up when it came to affirmations and positive affirmations and, being super positive on purpose and like getting yourself to positivity. I've just only had an eye roll for affirmations recently. Until recently. In the therapy that I'm doing, my therapist shared with me that cognitive behavioral therapy, it used to be just take that negative thought that you're thinking and replace it with a positive thought. But now they're saying that, like, and like scientists have proven or whatever, that the saying the positive thought out loud is super effective in building your self-confidence and self-esteem, and therefore being able to hold your boundaries better, being able to feel safer in the world. So yeah, I've started to, and also along the lines of like manifestation. We can talk about manifestation another time because that's a whole different thing. But the positive affirmations, it's something very small, and it's something that I'm not used to doing, as I said. But my therapist charged me with it this week. She's like, "Do you have a critical inner voice?" I was like, "Oh yeah." So I'm going to try it, and I've already incorporated a little bit of like a affirmations video into my meditation routine. So it's just like a 5-minute video of someone saying affirmations and you repeat them. But wow, it's so nice. It's just like meditation. It's not really about meditation in and of itself. It's more like the act of meditating. That's all you need to do. Just do it. And so that's all you need to do. Just say it, So I feel like, yeah, it's slowly helping me. So, okay. So I'm going to say today, I'm going to try one out and say, I am a talented, creative person. Oh God. Feels so weird. Okay. No, I'm going to say it with confidence this time. I am a talented and creative person. See, there it was. Not so hard. I'm patting myself on the shoulder right now. It feels a little corny at first, but then, hey, I'm a talented and creative person. It's just based off of objectivity. So yeah, I don't know. Try it out for yourself. See what you think. Sending love. Hope you've got some warm weather coming, if it isn't already warming up around you. And thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.
I've been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.